Hello everybody and welcome to your phrase challenge. So English phrase challenge today comes from my visit to the nursery. Not the nursery where we take our children to play, but the plant nursery. Yes, if the plants are being grown, nurtured, looked after in the one place, it's called the nursery. We do have garden centres, but they sell and look after plants and other things. So if it's just plants, I go to the plant nursery. And in today's challenge, as well as looking at the phrases I used whilst I was at the nursery, I'm going to mention the adjectives. So just a reminder, there are 3 degrees of adjective. The positive degree, when you use the word to describe the thing you're looking at, nice, big, small. The comparative degree, when you're just comparing one thing to another, when you add er and you say smaller, oh this is smaller, this is bigger, this is nicer. And the superlative, when you're talking about the nicest, the biggest. Yes, so as well as phrases, we'll be looking at adjectives. And what am I doing at the nursery? Well, I went to the nursery today because I needed to buy a Christmas tree. So consider this. That's my phrase. It means think about. I had to think about what size of tree did I want to buy. So I compared 2 trees using the comparative bigger than. The questions I had to ask myself were, which tree is bigger? Which is the bigger tree? Is this tree bigger than this tree? So consider this, think about those ideas. Then I had to think it through. That's our second phrase. Think it through. Don't just decide quickly. Think about some different things that are important to you. So, how big do I want this tree? And I thought about where it might go when I get home to think about how big might I want this tree. And there's your superlative, the biggest of all. So my questions were, when I looked at all of the trees, which tree is the biggest? Which is the biggest tree? Is this the biggest tree? And did you hear me emphasize that sound at the end there? Est. Biggest. Yes, think it through. My next phrase, think twice. I had to say to myself, think twice. Don't just accept the first thought. That one is the biggest tree, but think about it again. What else do I need from this tree? Oh yes, I need a pretty tree. Now a pretty Christmas tree for me means that it's larger at the bottom, what we call bushier, and it narrows at the top. So that for me is a really pretty tree. So I compared 2 and I thought I need to think about the prettier of the 2. So there's my comparative, prettier. Questions, which tree is prettier? Which is the prettier tree? Is this tree prettier than this tree? Think twice. And then the phrase that's important for you next is consider it. This is a phrase we use a lot when we want people to think. Just consider it. Consider it. So I had to think about, what about all of the trees? And that's when I used the superlative prettiest. So the prettiest of all. The questions I had to ask myself were, which tree is prettiest? Which is the prettiest tree? Is this tree the prettiest tree? Consider it. And then, once I'd considered it, thought about it, I had to weigh it up. That means I had to think about all the different reasons why I needed that tree. Weigh it up. It's about measuring what's the most important thing to you. And I thought, well, this is a small tree. That's important to me. Weigh it up. This is a small tree, but is it smaller than? So there's my comparative adjective again, smaller. Yes, it is smaller than the other trees. Think twice. That's your phrase, remember. I'm not just deciding from my first thought. I'm thinking twice. Is it big enough? Is it smaller than this one? And then I asked my husband, because my husband was there with me, this is a small tree. Do you think it's the smallest of all? So smallest, using the superlative of the adjective. And my husband said, you be the judge. Do you know that phrase? You be the judge. It means you choose. You take responsibility for making the choice between the trees. Yes. So I had to think about what was I going to do with the tree when I got it home. I wasn't going to put the Christmas tree inside. I wanted the Christmas tree to put outside in the garden. So I wanted it to be bushy, pretty, and I wanted it to be small so that each year it would grow, and every year I would see it in my garden, and at Christmas time it could be decorated. So I looked and I thought twice, and I thought again, and I weighed up the evidence and the information, and I said, I have chosen the smallest tree. And I was quite happy, but then I had to think fast. So that just means think quickly. Sometimes we use the phrase on the spot. It means now. You can't change your mind now. You've got to think fast. Think quickly. Oh, wait a minute. Is that car big enough? So I'm pointing to the car when I say that, because remember, that and this, that is at a distance, this is closer to me. So I'm pointing at the car. Is that car big enough? That's important. It needs to be able to be big enough to put the tree in and take it home. And don't forget, when we use the word enough in English, if we use it after the adjective, we're describing the adjective. So we're saying, we know the car is big. How big is it? Big enough. How big is it? Will the tree fit into that car? Think fast. Then I said the next phrase, come to think of it. This is just a phrase that we use when we just mean, oh yes, I've just thought. Of course, come to think of it, an idea has just popped into my head. Come to think of it, my husband's car is bigger than my car. So I'm comparing his car with mine, and I'd forgotten my car's really small. But my husband's car is bigger than my car, so come to think of it, should be big enough. So all things considered, that's our next phrase. All things considered means I've thought about lots of things when I went to buy this tree. I didn't just go to the nursery and say I'll have that tree. So all things considered, when I've thought about what I'm going to do with it, why I'm buying it, how big it needs to be, how it needs to be a bushy tree, I've now got to think about the car. So all things considered, thing about the car that's most important is I need the biggest car. So there's your superlative, biggest. So all things considered, this was a good choice. So that means when I look at everything, all things considered. And there's your phrases for today. Consider this, think it through, think twice, think fast. all things considered. Weigh it up. Come to think of it, you be the judge, and you be the judge about how well you did today's phrase challenge. So, did you know any of the phrases? Do you know them now? And if you don't, are you going to learn them? And I'm off now to just check on my Christmas tree, but I'll be back tomorrow with your next phrase challenge. Bye now.